All right, let's talk about something that's happening in your brain every single second, but we almost never think about it. I'm talking about your attention. It's this invisible force that literally shapes your entire reality, and we're going to break down exactly how it works.
I mean, really think about it. You're at a party, right? The music is blasting, there are dozens of conversations happening all around you. It's just a wall of sound. And yet somehow, someone says your name, and it just cuts right through all that noise. How on earth is that possible?
Well, there's actually a name for that little superpower. It's called the cocktail party effect, and it's our brain's incredible ability to selectively tune in to what matters. The secret behind it tells us something really profound about how our minds operate.
The answer, of course, is attention. But here's the key. It's not just some skill you have. It's a finite resource, a really precious and powerful tool that we have to manage every single moment of our lives.
So to really get this, let's start with a metaphor that's been around for over a century because it's just that good. The idea of the mind's spotlight. What is attention, really? And how does this spotlight even work?
Way back in 1890, the psychologist William James wrote this classic definition. And what's amazing is how he totally nailed two key things that we still talk about today. Selectivity, choosing one thing to focus on, and limited capacity, the fact that we just can't pay attention to everything all at once.
Now, this idea of a strict limit was a real puzzle for early researchers. I mean, if we can only focus on one thing, how does the brain decide what gets in and what gets ignored? This led them to explore this idea of filtering out the noise. So, the first big idea came from Broadbent, and his filter theory basically saw attention as an all-or-nothing switch. If you're not paying attention to something, poof, it's completely blocked. But that doesn't really explain the whole cocktail party thing, does it? So, along came Anne Treisman, who refined this with her attenuation theory. She said it's less like a switch and more like a volume dial. The stuff you're not paying attention to isn't blocked, it's just turned down. That way, something really important, like your name, can still break through.
But even that volume dial metaphor didn't quite explain why some tasks feel so much harder than others. So the focus started to shift from how we filter to what's powering the filter. And this is where we move from seeing attention as a structure, like a filter, to seeing it as a resource, less like a filter and a whole lot more like a fuel tank.
This is where the brilliant Daniel Kahneman and his capacity model come into the picture. He argued that attention isn't a thing like a filter, but it's a resource, a limited pool of mental energy that we have to spread around to get things done. And honestly, the fuel tank analogy is just perfect. Every single mental task you do, whether it's solving a tough problem or just driving to the store, it's all drawing from the exact same finite tank of attentional fuel. So what's draining this tank? Well, the obvious one is just a complex task, right? But it's also all the stuff we deal with every day. Being stressed out, being tired, and of course, constant distractions. Even our general mood, if we're too anxious or just too bored, can drain that tank, leaving us with less fuel for what really matters. Okay, so if our attention is this limited resource, what actually directs where it goes? What are the triggers, both inside and out, that grab our focus and aim that spotlight? Well, we can pretty much split these triggers into two big camps. On the one hand, you've got the stuff from the outside world, a loud sound, a huge object, something new, or a bright, flashy color. That stuff just grabs you. But on the other hand, we have the triggers from inside our own minds, things like what we're interested in, our mood, our habits, or even just expecting something to happen, like waiting for a text to come through. Our internal world is just as powerful at directing our spotlight as the external. And now let's bring all this into the 21st century. Because this limited, incredibly valuable resource, our attention, has become the world's most sought-after commodity. It's the new currency.
In our modern world, with the constant notifications, the endless feeds, the pressure to multitask, that finite fuel tank we've been talking about, it is under a constant, relentless siege.
And this slide just illustrates the cost perfectly. You'd think that people who multitask all the time would get better at it, right? It makes sense. But the research shows the exact opposite. A 2009 study found that heavy media multitaskers were actually worse at filtering out irrelevant stuff. By trying to do everything at once, they had literally trained their brains to be less focused. And this is a huge problem, because our real capacity for focus is, well, it's shockingly small. Research by psychologist Nelson Cowan suggests our working memory, the very core of our conscious thought, can only really handle about 4 chunks of information at any one time. Not dozens, not 10, just 4. And this is why it all matters so much. Attention isn't just about focusing on a task. It is the gatekeeper. What you choose to pay attention to is what you perceive, it's what you remember, and ultimately, it's what makes up your conscious experience of life itself.
So I'll just leave you with this question to think about. In a world, in an economy that is literally designed to capture and harvest your attention, how will you choose to spend yours?